Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Cunningham, AVP of Alumni Relations at Lehigh University. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. I hope it will be helpful. I'm here with Brett Smith, MBA from Lehigh, class of 13, and he's the director of the Small Business Development Center at Lehigh, which is actually one of 17 centers of its type in Pennsylvania. And he's going to take us through the 5 things that small businesses can do in the era of coronavirus. And if you are not from Pennsylvania state, I think this is going to still be extremely helpful for you. He does have resources for nationwide assistance that he is happy to share. And thank you to Brett. Brett shared with us before this started that they are busier now than they've ever been with people outreaching and asking for assistance and advice. So we really appreciate that you're taking the time out to do this webinar with our Lehigh alumni parents and friends. So choreography for the next 29 minutes. If you would like to ask a question at any time, there is a box on your screen that says chat. Just click that and you will see a chat box pop up on the screen. Just type in your question or comment. You can either just direct it to the panelists and I will see that and read it to Brett, or you can type it to everybody. And if it's relevant for Brett, I will read that out loud. And if we don't get to everybody's questions, we are recording this and we will answer your questions from the chat as a one-off. So Brett will speak for 5 to 10 minutes and then we will get to your questions after that. All right, Brett.
All right. Thank you, Jen. And again, thank you to everybody for taking the time out of your days to join us. I understand, a lot of business owners have a lot going on right now. And, we just want to be here as a resource to give you some tips, but also let you know what resources are available near you. The SBDC network is nationwide. We are funded through the Small Business Administration. We're one of their resource partners. So we're not the ones handing out money, but we can help talk to you about the different programs that are out there. And we're here every day of the year, but especially now. We're a no-cost, confidential, one-on-one resource, and there's over almost 1,000 SBDCs across the country. So there's going to be one near you, and I'll show you where you can find yours at the end of my slides here. But really, we just want to provide a couple tips. There's really actually going to be 10 tips because the first 5 were when we created this was around when everything was starting here in Pennsylvania. So some of you may just be starting under shelter-in-place orders and other business restrictions. So these are still relevant even for those businesses in Pennsylvania. The first is get all your documents in order. This is most important really all the time, but as you're going to be having these conversations with bankers, vendors, lawyers, looking at your leases, your other contracts, it's important to have all that together. We have cases all the time where clients come in and need help with these types of programs. And, all the documents are buried in a drawer somewhere. They're not up to date. Now's the good time, just as a general housekeeping, to get that together. Next, talk to your bank. The other programs that are out there, the IDOL loans, the PPP, your local and state programs are all great resources. And we can talk about those in the question period. But, your banker is going to have the quickest ability to be able to make changes to your existing programs. Some banks are being flexible, others less so, but it's worth having the conversation. Also negotiate with your suppliers and other partners and stakeholders. Everybody is under, all different kinds of restrictions and stress and business issues right now. So, everybody's in the same boat. And really it's sort of if you don't ask, you don't get type of situation. Your suppliers some suppliers may be willing, some may not. But it's worth having the conversation because everybody's impacted. There's not really as much of a pride issue as there could be other times. So now's the time to do that. They're going to be looking to have a customer base when, everybody's going to need a base when they get out and go into recovery. So we're having that conversation now will be helpful. Also understanding your employment retention options. Here in Pennsylvania, the unemployment office has what they call a shared work program, which allows businesses to reduce effort of employees without impacting their unemployment costs and any kind of penalties. There are tax credits available. The Paycheck Protection Program loan has employee retention aspects to it. So understanding in your state and in your, city, municipality, what options are available is also important to, again, if you want to maintain your employees, to be able to bring them back when you reopen. And most importantly for these tips is follow trusted resources. The information is changing constantly. We get information at 9:30 at night, and by the time we open up in the morning, it's already out of date. So anything that you're getting from, say, chambers or other partners, lawyers, accountants, go to the websites of the agencies offering those programs directly. That's where you're going to find the most up-to-date information. Pretty much anything that gets sent out, even from us, as soon as it's sent out, it's pretty much out of date within an hour. So, for those that have been under, some kind of shutdown for a week or so, and those that are starting to be, it's important to start planning your recovery now. One, you want to get a jump on your competitors just from a natural business standpoint, but also, you want to make sure that you have the tools in place to reopen and what your new normal is going to be when you do so. So I recommend using a 30, 60, 90-day outlook. I'd actually recommend doing two. One for as is. Here in Pennsylvania, we're looking at April 30th as our anticipated date of being able to, start reopening. But look at, if we reopen then, what are my options and what do I have to do in those next 90 days to be able to be successful? Also do one starting for the reopening, regardless of when it is, to decide, okay, if I open, when can I ramp up from, nothing to what I was doing before? Do I have to start, with certain services or products right away? Figuring out what's going to be most beneficial, for employee retention, all of that. Also do some sensitivity analyses to project your cash flow. Look at, if we open May 1, what can I be doing? If I open June 1, what decisions am I going to have to make? And if I go into July 1, at what point am I going to have to make decisions on what bills I have to pay, what employees I can retain? When do you have to have those conversations? Also consider alternate revenue streams. We've seen a lot of, innovation, alternative methods of delivery over these last few weeks. Especially, I use restaurants as an example that, every restaurant is now offering curbside delivery and pickup, which is, great, but is something that didn't exist before, or, it's not necessarily innovative, but it's, something that, is now becoming more accepted as the norm, especially here in the Lehigh Valley. A lot of doctors, lawyers, accountants are working remotely, which didn't used to happen as much before. So look at other ways that you can provide your services to help bring in some cash to help get you back up and running. And lastly, again, nothing, normal is going to be different when we get out of this. There's no doubt about that. There'll be a lot of innovation. We may have to slowly get back into things. So you're going to have to reevaluate your business model. Again, those restaurants that are doing these different kinds of services, can they still continue? Can they offer those once we reopen, or is that going to become expected now? Again, same with grocery stores, that people are now doing that going forward. So again, these are just things to kind of jog your memory. If you do have questions about the different programs, again, there are almost 1,000 SBDCs across the country. We are certainly here, but it's very important now, especially with all the different state specific restrictions, local restrictions, to find your local SBDC. They will be able to help you best. You can click that link there. We can probably copy it into the chat box, or we can certainly send these out later. But finding your local SBDC will be your best resource going forward. Our website certainly has resources available to you. And of course, my email is here. If you do have those kind of one-off questions, I can certainly answer them as we're able. But again, we are here. All your SBDCs are here to be that resource. And again, we're not a third-party consultant. We're part of the SBA, are funded by them. So that's what we're here for.
Great. Thank you, Brett.
Sure.
We already have a couple questions. One from Adrienne, who's commenting, and I've heard this as well. You can't get anyone from Bank of America on the phone. You need to submit online. And if you have questions, you are SOL. So I think that's really common. If people can't get in touch with their bank, what's the next best option?
So that's one of the issues we've been finding all across, all across our state. The best place is to start out with your local bank, because a lot of the banks are only doing the PPP loans for their customers, and you have to have been a customer usually before February 15th when the program starts.
You mean like the bank, like the brand, like don't call Bank of America's national.
Well, yeah, well, you could call them, but that's the first place. Your existing bank will be the best place to start. Certainly try local. You might be able to get at least some answers, but also look at. There's a link that I can certainly send along that the SBA put up that banks that are doing them. So you can try calling other local credit unions, community banks. Some are being flexible, but we're hoping as the rules kind of keep refining and they pass additional legislation that it'll be more open to everybody.
Yeah, David says that for Bank of America, you can just apply on their website. He did it yesterday and it was easy. I think the thing is if you have any questions about it, but it sounds like maybe just go ahead and submit, like forget the question, just go ahead and submit and they'll contact you.
Yeah, I mean, the worst thing, the one nice thing about these programs, I guess, is there's no cost to apply for them. So even if you're not sure if you're going to be able to get through, try and apply, see what happens.
Yeah. David is saying you do need to get in line. Mm-hmm. It sounds like they're just kind of triaging, just like everybody else.
Yep.
And along those lines, I'll get back to Amanda. I'll get back to your question in a second, but Michelle is asking, do you recommend starting a new bank account to accept just those PPP funds?
Yes. That is some of the guidance that has come out. The biggest thing, especially if you're going to do the PPP IDOL, you're going to do multiple programs. There are restrictions on using them for the same purpose. So you do want to make sure, I would recommend opening a separate account to keep track of any of those funds that you would get from those programs. Yes.
Good. So Amanda's question was, are you available to anyone or just Lehigh alumni?
So our territory specifically covers Lehigh, Northampton, and parts of Bucks and Montgomery counties. The link here will connect you. If you're not in that territory, we'll get you to the SBDC closest to you. But again, if you do have those one-off type questions, feel free to reach out to me.
Yeah, so you serve more than Lehigh alumni. You serve.
Yeah, we're actually here for any small business in the Lehigh Valley and beyond. So, yeah, but we do get alumni and faculty and students that want to start businesses as well.
Elizabeth's question is, should you contact your local bank for EIDL as well, or is that something that should be applied for through the SBA website?
Yes, that's all through the SBA website, and that you don't have to go through your bank. So any business that's eligible can apply for that. And again, that's usually my recommendation if you're having trouble getting into the PPP program. Apply for IDOL. It is a traditional loan, so it's not forgiven like the PPP. But again, it's an option. And if you're looking for funds, and you can always withdraw if you decide you either get PPP or you decide you don't need it, you can always withdraw it before they give it to you.
Great. She also asked, do you think there's any red tape or any tax issues with the $10,000 grant that's payable within 3 days of applying for the IDOL?
Yep. So to just to clarify, the 3 days, they haven't told us which 3 days they give that out. It's been pretty delayed. So I wouldn't bank on that 3-day period because they're not really sure because they've just been swamped with applications. But we haven't heard, at least I can't say we've heard any clarification on how that, will that count as income, any of the tax side of that. But the 10,000 is based on, last we heard, it's $1,000 per employee up to $10,000. So it's not a flat 10. And there is no expectation of it being repaid. So whether you get denied for IDOL or you decide not to take it, it's still, that money is not expected to be repaid.
Okay. While we're waiting for people to type in their questions, Brett, what is the most common question that you've gotten over the last 3 weeks? Is it mostly related to getting the loans?
Yep, it's been a lot of that. It's we're also kind of getting the brunt of why they aren't moving quicker, and we understand that. What I tell people is the government passed a bill in 3 days and then tried to ramp it up in a week. So the fact that applications go through it all is impressive to me. But yeah, it's pretty much what loan should I apply for? What's out there? A lot of people are, they hear about grants and they're more excited about those. But really for any business with IDOL, a 30-year loan at 3.75% or a possible 30-year loan, most businesses would love that at any point in the year.
Yeah. You mentioned gathering your paperwork together. Could you just kind of rattle off what papers they should be gathering to get these loans and other things?
Yep. So typically it's going to be balance sheets, profit loss statements. For PPP especially, it's going to be your payroll documentation. You're going to need your corporate, whether it's your LLC operating agreement, your articles of incorporation, because there's certain thresholds where owners, if you have multiple owners in the company, that they'll need to contribute information as well. So I would say financial and legal type documents would be the most important right now.
Okay, good. Elizabeth is also asking about the IDOL grant, $1,000 possible per employee. She hadn't seen that part. Could you let her know what resource would be best to look at to gain a better understanding of that?
Yep, I'll send out, I can send out those links. They, that's just because we're on calls with SBA pretty frequently, and that's the guidance we've gotten lately. So it's up to $10,000. And, we were even telling people it was 10,000 in the beginning before we got clarification.
Okay, great. And then we know that a College of Business professor reviewed some of the tax law around the CARES Act, and we'll send out that link as well. That could be helpful. Okay. So Brett, just in general, how are the small businesses around Lehigh doing these days?
So it's a lot, everybody's trying their best. It's kind of the biggest part was figuring out which businesses were considered essential and which ones were not per the governor. I know when I was driving through to get stuff out of my office before it shut down, I've never seen South Bethlehem that, empty.
Wow.
But, I know I see stuff from Southside Arts and all of that they've been, they're all offering takeout. They're all, the other businesses are trying to maintain as best they can. So I think we'll get out of it fine, but.
Yeah, Amanda says, pretty sure the goose is essential.
Yes, they are. Yeah, I get their tweets all the time. That's pretty much the only reason I have a Twitter account. So.
I know. Yeah, Tony is quite essential. Yeah, we were worried about that when all the students are gone.
Right.
And Southside, our office for Alumni Relations is on the South Side now, and it was really starting to just become an amazing place for some of you who were students a while ago. I think people were kind of afraid to go to South Bethlehem, and now it's just amazing and was really growing. So really hope that continues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm hoping the newer businesses that have opened can stay open and find a way to.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit, Brett, about the individual consulting that you do? Are you still doing that now, business as usual, or have you really pivoted to helping with the loan situation?
So, probably I would say at this point, at least 90% of what we're doing right now is focused on, the COVID-19 stuff. But, we are here, we're still helping people start businesses. We're kind of a beginning to end of your business resource. So whether you're looking to understand what it takes to start a business, all the way to selling a business, to everything, whether, financing for a new building, new equipment, looking for export assistance to sell abroad, government contracting assistance to sell to state and federal government, marketing strategy, strategic planning, all of that stuff in between, we have resources available. We are still doing that if people have questions, but, again, 90% is probably still just related to what's going on right now.
Yeah. Elizabeth had a good comment too. I've been in insurance for a while and definitely second the recommendation to collect insurance documents and document any loss of income in the event that these House bills do pass and carriers must pay these business interruption losses. Mm-hmm. So the insurance piece of that.
Yeah. Worst case is just making sure you know where it is, but also just knowing what terms you've agreed to and what, these because this falls under the force majeure kind of aspects of those contracts, is understanding what your options are right now before any legislation's passed.
Right. David had said earlier about cautioning, just get your applications in, even if you have questions, because they need money. Does it feel like a feeding frenzy that people are just like, just pushing and shoving to get at the front of the line, or is there a more methodical way of choosing which businesses get how much?
No, that's pretty much the IDOL program is, doesn't have a cash top like the PPP does. So that's just, again, they'll give those out as much as they can. The PPP does have a almost $400 billion limit, and they're talking, I heard today something about another 250 billion. But that one is one of those, once it's exhausted, it's exhausted. So it is just trying to at least get the application in to be there. Even if you don't have all the documentation ready, apply and then get it together, because I'd hate for somebody to miss out just because they're looking for a paper. But like the state had a program for, it was up to $100,000 for small businesses, and they maxed it out in 5 days.
Wow. Wow.
And it was a $61 million pot of funds.
Right. And what is the definition of small business for these loans? Is it?
So good question. It's typically up to 500 employees for manufacturing, and usually up to around $15 million in annual revenue for services. However, each program is a little different. I believe PPP is any business, virtually any business with less than 500 employees, regardless of revenue. But there is each program will have, it's usually done by NAICS code, so they'll ask you for that information.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's a big small business.
Right. And that's the thing is, that's why, you'll see usually 99% of businesses in the US are small. It's because, except for your giant businesses, everybody is considered small in some, from some aspect.
Yeah. And question, what about 501c3s? Are those businesses?
So they are eligible for, I believe, both programs. They can, I know I even saw something that churches are eligible too for one of them. But yeah, so nonprofits can apply for both. C3 specifically, you'll want to check the regulations, because I know, like I was talking to our local chamber, and they're eligible for one, but not the other, based on how they're organized. So do check those guidelines. And again, the resources I'll send along will have those links to the rules.
Right.
Yes, that is not typical.
Yeah. Yeah. That seems funny that it seems a little counterintuitive that the Chamber of Commerce would be applying for a small business.
Right. But, they got to pay their bills like the rest of us. So, yeah.
Right. Is there a specific, is there anything specific if you have a web-based business? Does that count as small business if you're doing business all over the country or the world?
Yep. It doesn't matter whether you're virtual or you have a brick and mortar location. As long as you meet the, and it's even open to, which again is also not typical, it's open to sole proprietors, independent contractors. It's, pretty much any type of business that's out there can apply for these programs.
Yeah. And are you helping people decide whether or apply to see if they're essential or non-essential? Is that part of what you do?
So it's not, because that's all done through, here it's the State Department of Community and Economic Development. So, that all goes through them. They have the information on that. We can certainly have a conversation if they're deciding, if they are able to open, what parts of my business should I be doing? How can I take advantage of that? But no, it'll be the state governments that decide who can be open or not.
Gotcha. Adrian's asking, can you apply to both of these programs, the PPP and the IDOL, if you're unsure which one?
Yep, absolutely. And we do recommend that. The biggest thing to make sure is that you disclose to both that you are applying for both, and just make sure that you're not using each loan for the same purpose. So one example, PPP you can use for your payroll, which is the point. And then the IDOL you could use for working capital and other types of expenses.
Oh, that's great advice. Mm-hmm. Also wondering, from the more human standpoint of all of this, do you know of any groups or anything that are kind of providing moral support? Or are you seeing those sort of pop up organically within industries?
Well, that's kind of also been our side role. That's really, with all the resource guides and everything that are coming out, people just want to be able to talk to somebody and get an answer. And that's really, where where we've exploded in the last couple of weeks, is just being able to talk to a human. I think, industries and governments are putting together different resources. But, that's one thing the SBDCs are here for, is to provide that human contact.
And we were thinking about that from an alumni relations standpoint too. We have thousands of alums who run small businesses, and trying to figure out how the alumni network can support them.
Mm-hmm.
So anybody on this call, email me after and let me know what kind of support you might need from other alumni, because we've heard from lots of alumni that are doing okay, who are willing to support support the team, as it were.
And there's also a lot of, like the chamber here just came out with a program, and it also was maxed out in a day, that some other businesses had put together some funds to help other small businesses. So that stuff is kind of is happening. We usually see at least 1 or 2 programs a week that are popping up.
Yeah. And beyond the 2 programs that we've spoken about and some of these other chambers and things like that, are there other ways for people to do you recommend things like Kickstarter and GoFundMe and those kind of things at this point, or?
You can always try. I mean, at this point, it's, there's always, the dangerous family and friends. There's, again, states will probably have their own programs. Like Northampton County has a program here that they started. Crowdfunding is an option. But, I don't know I haven't heard of any, successful cases of that right now, but that doesn't mean they don't exist. But yeah, the biggest thing is to just be careful, especially with online lenders. It's very easy to get loans quickly for like 25% plus interest rates. So just, make sure to check your sources. Your SBDCs can help you with that conversation too. Yeah.
What about, I've seen some people recommend go to your favorite restaurant and buy a gift card to use later. Is that something, but then as a consumer, I'm a little nervous if I give, my favorite restaurants a couple $100s and then they don't make it.
Right. Yeah. And is that risk, because a lot of times, unless there'd be some effort locally, those gift cards can't be accepted other places. But it's, if you're able, again, there's always kind of that moral dilemma of, do you order delivery and takeout and, risk that exposure, or do you order the gift cards? I think it's just, promoting them, being there for them. If you can do the gift cards, that's great. You could see if there's other options. I don't know, how businesses take donations, but, if those kind of things are out there, it's, and also just remembering once things open up to go back to them and be there. Yeah.
And I was thinking about, there's all kinds of jokes on the interweb about haircuts.
Yep. Yeah. You can see right here. Yeah.
I want to make sure that like my stylist stays in business. So I want to call her and say, book me for the next year. Here's my money, up front. But I don't know if a lot of businesses are thinking that way or doing that.
Yeah. And that's where, the ones that can is just trying to be figure out how can you be innovative when you open, what can you do differently to, can you maintain your customer base? Do you have a new customer base? Because I know like we're trying a lot of different restaurants we hadn't before to try and, 1, be helpful, but 2, just, like they're offering family meals that they didn't before. It's just, I think the biggest thing is to just make sure that once you can go back out safely, that you do it and you're going to your local businesses.
Yeah. And Lauren had a good comment. What happens a couple of months from now when consumers are cashing in on those gift cards, but not paying the new currency to shops and restaurants? I think that's where I would say I just have to order dessert. I wouldn't normally, but.
Yeah. I do feel, people will have such cabin fever. They'll go out and hopefully the problem will solve itself. But it's also not to get complacent and assume everybody else is going to do that too.
Right. Good. All right, we are at our time of 1 o'clock. I think this was really helpful, Brett. And also I forgot to mention at the beginning that Brett has a 1-month-old. In addition to the probably 90 hours a week that you're working, you also have a 1-month-old. So special thanks for joining us today.
Sure, of course. It's my quiet time during the day, so that works.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And again, we will send out this recording, and do email me, jennifer.cunningham@lehigh.edu, if there's any way the Alumni Network can support you. And I hope everyone makes it through this time. Our thoughts are definitely with you all and anything we can do to help. Thanks. And thanks again, Brett.
Yep. And thanks again, everybody, for joining.